met David Robbins at church, and we had this really interesting conversation. And he told me about a book he wrote and also some tarot cards that go along with the book. So I went home and immediately bought them online. And I said, gee, would you want to present? So I'm really happy to have him here. David is a screenwriter of spirituality, showing the hero's journey of healing and becoming divine. He started his journey as an artist with a BFA in graphic design and realized he needed to do something to help others, went back to school and got an MA in art therapy. He read lots of books, incorporated universal wisdom into his writing. His main influence is Jung and the Jungian writers that followed. He's fascinated with past life regression and the wreath of knowledge that has come out of that, such as a council that works with us to plan our lives. Gnosticism seems to be the religion that's most in line with his beliefs because it addresses the simulation we are in. I mean, is that an intriguing description or what? So with that, welcome, David. So happy to have you with us.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to share my work. Like you've heard my intro about the tarot. To me, the tarot is about the journey of who we are. And to begin with, and it explains who we are in a consciousness, and the four archetypes of the self are ego, shadow, soul, and spirit. And through the tarot, I show that, which I'd like to do now. This is the beginning of the deck, the Fool, and we start out as being all the parts of ourselves is undifferentiated, and this is the earth. The earth, before we incarnate, we are in complete consciousness, all the parts are together. So when we come to earth, then there are four archetypes, and this is the magical ego. And it's who we are on the surface. It's our consciousness of our ordinary consciousness. And our journey is to connect with the three other parts that are subconscious, which are shadow, soul, and spirit. And the ego has the four functions of the four suits. The swords is for thinking. The wands are our intuition. The cup represents our emotions, and the star with the coin in it represents the five senses. And that's what we begin with. And this piece is our potential, our magical to be who we really are, as a sperm with an infant inside it. And it represents our potential. The next one is the shadow. And in regular decks, it would be called the high priestess. And this is the part of who we put in, we bury our emotions from childhood pain, and we repress a lot of emotion and pain from childhood. And our job is to express this and let go of what holds us back. And from there, we can connect with the soul, and the soul is who we really are. It's the divine feminine, the goddess self. And I feel that that's, regardless of gender, our soul is feminine. And she's going, I used Isis as the representation, and she's going to this Isle of Horus, her child, to bring forth her divine masculine self, to unite with that. This is the spirit, and I represented him as Buddha, as the divine masculine. So these are the four archetypes that we use, that who we are, and our journey through the tarot is to integrate these pieces of who we are. So the next piece is the Hierophant. And to me, this represents the call to adventure. And I see it as a Jesus-like symbol who represents who we are, divine, and he offers the snakes of transformation, and the fishing rod he extends to this blob on the boat. And that's who we are. With that, in alchemical terms, it's the prima materia. We start off as something that's, you know, the original material that we want to transform in alchemy. So then what we want to do is merge with our emotions and heal ourselves of the shadow, empty the shadow of all the material that we want to get rid of, that is hurting us, pain, and we want to get rid of the victim self. And once we do that, we can go to the personal place of power. But in the meantime, we have the golden carriage. It's a transitional phase from shadow to soul. And it's a vulnerable time where we know we're going to the soul and being the goddess, but there's challenges of other people interfering and pulling us out of that destination. And then we have the personal place of power. And this is where we go to be the divine feminine self. It would be connected to the third chakra of the abdomen, the solar chakra. And I always associate the three attributes of beauty, passion, and wisdom with this goddess. And that's in the temples of the pyramids, that the soul learns to develop these qualities of beauty, passion, and wisdom. And above it is the sun, and that's my symbol for the self, the four quadrants, connected with the infinity sign representing infinite flow of compassion. So once we feel very confident, it's like a place we kind of are enlightened in our divine feminine being. The next one is the Hermit. And that's where we feel that we want to go out into the world and share our wisdom with others and be, the goddess self. And I have it representing like the sixth chakra of the third eye. We begin to open our third eye and develop our psychic abilities. And
David, I'm sorry, can I interrupt for just a quick second here and let our members know, since it's a little different presentation, if you want to see these pictures more clearly, maybe you're not aware of it, but there's a function called pin. If you go to David's square and in the upper right, you click the three dots, there'll be an option called pin, and that will enlarge him so you can get a very clear look at these beautiful cards.
I also have them on my website too. That might be easier to, maybe share from there. That would be songoftheself.tarot.com. Okay,
Can you put that in the chat, please, for us?
Okay.
Song to yourself, is that
No,
what was it?
Song of the selftarot.com.
Okay, thank you.
And okay, so as the goddess soul, our next challenge is to deal with the tri-principalities of fate, karma, and timing. And that's about divine order. And the first one is the fate. And that is about giving your life to God, knowing that you want to follow God's will more than the will of the ego. And it's a very, very vulnerable place. And it's where we learn the strength of vulnerability. And the fate, I also believe that we choose our fate before we get here, like was stated in the introduction. And so we, at this point, realize that we're fulfilling our fate by being of service to others. This one is this one is karma, and it has the scales of justice and the Akashic Book of Records. And so in our lives, we also have to deal with the contracts we made with other people and what we decided and how it will play out. And we have the option of how we deal with it and develop the divine quality of perseverance. Oh, I forgot to tell you, on this one, we develop the divine quality of faith, having faith in in God and in ourselves. The last one in that series is timing. And this corresponds to the hangman and the other decks. And this is about developing patience. That we realize everything is in divine order in God's timing. And we develop patience for that. And these tombstones, it's a clock with tombstones. And the numbers 9 and 3 are there to show the 9 is the hermit and the 3 is the tri-principalities. And completing this, it's like we're waiting to die to go on to the next stage. And that death is shown here. And it's about the ego dying, or I should say the soul-centered ego dying to not really die, but transition to the next phase, which is to allow the spirit to integrate the spirit. And so the snakes of transformation, we allow ourselves to transform and let go of the control that we had as the goddess, who was very powerful in manifesting whatever she wants. And now we let go to manifest what our higher self would like. And so when we die to that, I have this image of the snakes becoming this infinite flow of compassion. And that is, to me, the representation of the divine masculine, love, who we really are. And that basically is the end of the journey of becoming who we are. But then there are more things I can discuss. So the next one is the devil. And to me, the devil represents the simulation, the deception that we're in on this journey of life. And it also, on a mundane level, it's a person is they're worshiping the dollar. And the devil is laughing at us for worshiping money and materials. The next one is the tower, and it's about taking understanding that it's a simulation and undoing the paradigm, taking apart the paradigm. It also shows a lightning bolt of inspiration. It's where we learn to allow the spirit to guide us with, bolts of inspiration. And the next set of cards shows the creation of consciousness, and it begins with the star. And to me, the star represents the imagination, the vision of creativity. The creator has to have a vision of who we are. And the vision is this woman, the goddess, the consciousness of humanity, of the divine human soul. And then to manifest the power of desire, we need to use the power of desire with the vision to manifest. That's how I believe the creator did it. And that's how I believe that we need to do it as well. Whatever we want to manifest, we need the desire. And then that manifestation would be this, the divine child, the son, and the rainbow is the fullness of who we are. Originally, I thought of this as the spiritual teacher. I thought of it as the healer. Basically, it's the healing presence that we learn that we are a healing presence in the world just by being here and sharing our love and divine qualities. This one is, I call it incarnation. It corresponds to the card, and the regular one is judgment. And this is about deciding to be on the earth and asking for a lifetime, an incarnation. And that the white tree it's a Egyptian symbol. It's like the tree of life. And we asked to do that. Originally, I had thought of this card as giving your pain to God and to forgive. Because once you forgive, then you're divine. So I think it has both meanings, and they both hold true. The last one in this series is I call resurrection. And this is who we are with all the parts of ourselves integrated. The spiritualized ego is another term for it. And it shows the, both parts, like the feminine water and the angelic wings. And she carries what I call the gift to the world, who we really are. And so that's the major arcana. I also have, do we have time for the minor? I had 10 more images.
Oh, yes, we do. You have another 24 minutes.
Oh, okay. So I'll continue.
You might want to, at some point, though, also allow some Q&A time. So that's up to you.
Okay. That would be good. All right. So the next is 10 universal symbols of manifestation. And instead of in the regular deck, there are 56 cards in the minor deck. I made it into 10 because I saw it as numerological. Like instead of 4 suits, I combine each of the 4 suits into one number. And it's a progression. So the first one in this series is divine fire. And this is the energy before a thought. Everything is energy. So we begin with that. And then you have two clouds shows the thought itself. And then This one is raindrops of emotion, 3. So when you add emotion to a thought, it gets heavier and it becomes more solid. And then this one is the field of dreams. And this is about verbalization. When you speak the thought with emotion, it gives it a lot of weight. It's like the groundwork of whatever you want to manifest. That's why I have it shown as 4 quarters, like a field to grow your dream. The next one is stars, constellation of the self. So it's about becoming aware that you're a divine human being. And in creativity, it's becoming aware of what you want to create. It's starting to have full form. And then this one is the crystallization of self. So after you constellate getting the idea, then you have it become more solidified. You see all the different facets of who we are, all the divine qualities start to shine. Then you have 7 buds of self-awareness. And the next 4 are in the season. So it's a springtime of the soul when we first begin to know that we're a soul and blossom forth our, gentle, loving, feminine beauty. And then in the summer of the soul, you have the blossoms of enlightenment. It's the maturing of the soul, showing the beauty, passion, and wisdom. And then it's the tree of self. That this is where, again, it's the transformation from the goddess to God. It's letting go of the crown of glory of the feminine to know the deeper truths of the divine masculine, the oneness of who we are. And it's a very lonely, difficult time, and it's like an incubative time, and you become very comfortable with who you really are in the world. And then this one is the mountain of joy. So this is the completion of the manifestation of who we are and of the consciousness reaching its joyful oneness, divine masculine state. And then we have the ability to share this love and joy with everyone and help them in their journey to go through this process. So that is it. So now I am open to questions.
I want to thank you and to tell you how much I appreciate the images. This is Rena somewhere from a box.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the process?
How it
Beautiful
came.
map of the soul and consciousness. And can you give us an example of how you use it as to kind of resolve an internal struggle or something like that?
I've done many readings with it, and I find that I usually do 3-card reading, past, present, and future. And I find that it always confirms where people are at. And then I'm able to, if I know more about the person, I can give, advice or counseling, a little bit of counseling to give more clarification on it. Because I'll start off telling them what they mean to me, and then I will relate the cards to each person. In this deck, I have on the back of them a brief description of what they are and keywords and phrases and questions to ask. And in the book, And it also has a couplet describing what each card is saying in a very concise way. In the book, I have it where each image has a poem, like a song, because it's called Song of the Self. Then each one I have a story about explaining the cards, because I had done the paintings, and then at 30 years ago I did the paintings, and then I tried writing a book. And so I wanted to give more information, and I developed a story for each card so that it becomes more of a of showing the journey. And it was only last year that I reworked it, and it came out amazing. Like, now I know why it took 30 years, because I had to develop the expertise, the skill, and understanding that much more after all those years, and using the deck and all the reading and experience.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work.
And in the book, it also explains each card in greater detail, and how and what they mean, and what questions to ask in a reading, and what they mean in a reading. I also compare it to the most well-known deck is the Rider-Waite deck, how it compares. And that's was a major influence in the work, was the Rider-Waite deck. And I wanted to make it more simple because it just felt too esoteric, and I wanted to get to the core of what it meant. And as I was doing that, it really narrowed it down for me.
Ruth,
Ruth has a comment.
yes, hi. Yes, good morning, everybody. David, I'm wondering, were you familiar with all the different cosmologies and understandings from the different cultures, or did you find that you ended up drawing things that later on actually related to the concepts that already exist? Do you know what I mean by that question?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I was very familiar with a lot of symbolism and culture, and I studied I was always fascinated with Egyptian culture, Egyptian symbols and culture, and and I've always loved the Eastern philosophies, so it's really, a culmination of so much. It really is.
Like the woman with the spider web behind her, which comes from a belief that the Spider Woman spun the entire world into existence. Is that something you were familiar with, or is that something that you just?
At the time, I don't think I was that when I did the deck, I don't think I was familiar with that, but I did come across that idea, I think, at some point, yes.
Fascinating. You should give a course just in the cards and the symbology of the cards.
That is one of my dreams. Is I feel that I would love for it to be taught in universities. I don't know if I want to be the speaker. I'm, as you could see, I'm having difficulty talking, and it's not my best skill. I prefer to be a writer. But definitely I envision it as a course in school, a part of a course.
Congratulations.
Sorry.
I don't
Go
know
ahead.
how that will manifest, but I'm visualizing it.
Well, we'll do your tarot reading for you. We'll tell you how it'll manifest.
And I also recently did, from the stories that I told, I created a screenplay just showing the story part of it. So I think it all rhymes. So it's like a musical. So that's another thing and I have many, many screenplays that I'm visualizing to be out there.
Thank you.
Tim had a question for you, David.
Sure. David, wonderful presentation. And as I sat there and listened and took it all in, there was just so much truth that could be connected to other philosophy systems, everything from Tibetan Buddhism to alchemy. My question is, I know you spent 30 years on this, but how did it come through? Like, did you wake up in the middle of the night and all of a sudden something coalesced, or were you writing and it kind of came through as a channel, or did you pull piece? What was the internal process that you went through? Because it is very dramatic and beautiful.
I think I had started to play around with the tarot deck, not the right away. I bought a deck. I was encouraged by a therapist to, to develop that. And, I was fascinated with these images and it was gnawing at me. I can make something more simple and not as woo-woo and as esoteric as the Rider-Waite. Because I really saw it, from Jungian study, I started to see it as a path rather than as divination. That's why on the card deck it says self-realization rather than just divination.
Beautiful, beautiful. And it's very raises consciousness all around the scale there.
Thank you. That's what it's intended. And it also informs all the other screenplays because I keep that in mind that this is a basic system of, a very simple system: ego, shadow, soul, and spirit. Healing, the goddess, the spirit. And I think it fits, like you're saying, all the different religions, at its truth, at its deepest truth.
There's a term called transcend and include, and that's exactly what you've done.
Thank you. I appreciate that you get all that.
Sorry, this is Ruth. One more
Thomas.
time. I forgot one thing I wanted to share, that it has a Rorschach quality to it, the deck, which I think is so fascinating. You know what I mean? That it's
Mhm.
like it's in the eye of the beholder. It's not just what we
Exactly.
think about it, but it's also how we're interpreting it.
And I appreciate that because that's also another part of the use of the deck is to meditate on, whatever image, in the book, whether you look at something that you resonate to in the book or just pick out a picture and that you resonate with and just allow it to speak to you
Right.
and bring forth what's in you, for sure.
Thomas had a question for you.
Actually, it's a comment. David, thank you for the presentation. And it's serendipitous, Ruth, that you would say what you just said, because my comment, David, is that in surveying all the great world religions and in surveying all the different forms of divination and giving expression or definition to terms like soul and spirit, those are notoriously huge and
Mhm.
open to such a wide range of interpretation, that what I was struck with in your presentation today is how your wording and your description of these things reveals your kind heart and your generosity of spirit. It's a
Thank
Rorschach test of the artist, and it's very lovely, how you reveal yourself, who you are, how you see things through the work. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that, too. Yeah, a lot of these concepts I struggled with a long time. And that's why, it took 30 years because I wasn't sure, is there a soul? Is there a spirit? Is there a difference? And I really had to understand that and delve into that more and more because it just felt like, it could be either or one or the other. And because you always hear different concepts, Father, Mother, God. And I really feel that is true. And that is why I like the Gnostic myth where it talks about chaos or the oneness bringing forth the divine Sophia, who is the feminine, and together they create the divine child, the some people may call it Jesus, or the manifestation of, I'd like to think of it as the divine, human divine consciousness. I appreciate how receptive everyone is to this, and I'm grateful to have done shown it. I wish I was more articulate, but I'm feeling like that'll take practice.
Well, I have a question, David. As you mentioned, it's not you're using them not for the purpose of divination, which is telling the future and all that sort of thing. And a lot of people actually do, though. And I'm just curious, if somebody comes to you with that kind of mindset, I'm just curious how you explain to them the difference. If maybe they're really set in thinking this is what tarot is, this is what it does, and how do you just broaden it for them and explain there's something more?
Well, I always say if I'm doing a reading, I don't see the future. I'm not gifted in psychic ability. It's really just confirmation of where you're at in your journey now. And it's usually most people have gained by that, just by seeing those images and knowing where they're at, and where they're moving toward. So, and that seems to work. No one says, I want to know, people seem to accept that. I'm not telling them if they're meeting whoever and the money's coming and all that. No, I don't do it.
Okay, thanks.
And I feel that those people who are gifted in that area can use it. They're welcome to use it in that way.
Martha has a question.
Hi, David.
Hello.
I just wanted to say I love the artwork. Those are really beautiful images and meaningful. And I thought it might make a nice gift, but who would be like the ideal recipient for your book and deck of cards?
Well, like I said, I think anyone like of college age, well, anyone who's open to spirituality, first of all. And I like to think that college age students, are still open-minded to learning. I could be wrong, but that's how I'm seeing it. Anybody interested in psychology or spirituality?
Any more questions or comments, reactions for David?
But I thought what I really received from you was your vulnerability and you having to go with the flow of what was taking place. And I thought you showed yourself and you moved through it beautifully by being just transparent. And that's what your cards represent. So thank you from my perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah, how tough is it for any of us to be just swimming in a morass of tech problems and time constraints and everybody's waiting and so forth? Been there, done that, and you'd handle it very well. I agree with
Well,
Jonathan.
to me, this was my biggest fear, is speaking in front of people to begin with, and then the technical on top of that that threw me off a little bit, but
Thank you for sharing, David. I'm really looking forward to using these on Thursday with my women's group.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.